Our next guest is an Air Force veteran. She was raped while serving her country. And when she tried to seek justice, she discovered that the scales of balance were not tipped in her favor. Colleen Bushnell joins us via Skype from Arizona with her story of survival and her strategy for change. Hi there, Colleen. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Can you hear me? I understand that we do not have Colleen at this moment. We will get back to her in just a few moments. But I do want to now introduce someone else, Michelle Wilmot. Michelle Wilmot is an Army veteran who served in Iraq. Michelle Wilmot joins us from Las Vegas, Nevada via Skype. She is a woman who represents one of the many challenges facing the military right now, which is the role of women in the military, specifically when it comes to combat. Michelle marched side by side all-male Marine infantry units while on patrol in Iraq. And Michelle, thank you for joining us this afternoon. I understand that you spent quite a bit of time in Iraq. You went there to do one thing, but you found yourself in the crosshairs of fire alongside all-male Marine Corps units. Can you give me a sense of what that was like?
Well, in the Army and a lot of other people in other branches like the Marine Corps can relate, we were trained in a way where we were expected to be soldiers. I trained alongside men when I went through basic training or boot camp, advanced individual training, and so on. So I really didn't see any difference at the time. It wasn't treated any different by the Marines that I was working with. So, you know, things that I've seen in movies, things I've been trained for, everything mounted up to that point. And it was stressful, it was difficult, but I did it and I'm home.
Michelle, when you found yourself with these units in Iraq, I understand you, as well as women like you, were defined as lioness. Explain a little bit where that term comes from and exactly what you were doing that, say, for example, other female soldiers were not doing in Iraq.
Well, at the time, this was 2004, 2005, so we had about 4,000 troops on our base, Camp Ramadi, and out of 4,000 troops, 30 were female. So when they started Team Lioness was actually formed in 2003. The documentary Lioness is based on that first group. They actually came up with that term just to get women out there and to search women and children for explosives and other weapons. So it was created out of necessity, and it wasn't exactly a political move in any regard. It was just something that was done because we invaded a predominantly Muslim country and we couldn't have male Marines or soldiers touching, obviously, Iraqi females. So that's where that came from, and they just kind of stuck with that. And even though they were using female soldiers to go out and search women and kids and to be able to go into houses and perform raids, be at checkpoints, search people, it wasn't too different from any other city that we were doing this in. And the soldiers that remained on base, whether they were male or female, they still had their duties to perform, whether it was something that was a lot more administrative or convoys. So it varied depending on MOS or military occupational specialty.
You talk about being on a base that had 4,000 troops and being one of 30 women. I can't even begin to imagine that, wrap my mind around that. And I should say, for the purpose of full disclosure, I am a military veteran. I was in the Air Force and I spent 4 years active duty in the military. So I certainly understand what it means to be greatly outnumbered by your male counterparts. Was there ever a question of safety, concern? What were the things that bothered you, not only as a soldier, but as a female soldier?
Well, when we first arrived on the base, we were told by the people that we were basing, which was an all-male team, that we'd probably get a lot of attention, and which we did. It was really strange for a lot of the males that we were surrounded with to see females on the post. But they got used to us, and that was that. And we never really had any issues with it. And I can't speak for other females who may have had issues with it, but for the team that I worked with on Team Lioness, we really didn't have any issues. So when we went out and did these various duties on Team Lioness, the only two questions that we were first asked, my counterpart and I, were one, did we want to be there? And of course, the answer was yes. And two, if we were good with our rifles. And the answer to that was yes. And we were asked no further questions. Now, mind you, we weren't trained on anything in addition to that, except patting somebody down real quick, and they relied on the training that we got in the Army with weapons qualification and other combat and tactical training that we received. So it wasn't anything that was a surprise to me at the time, but I really didn't face any scrutiny about it until I returned to the U.S.
And Michelle, of course, you know, we're having this conversation in part because of the official lifting of the ban of women in combat and the move to at least open a number of, as you say, MOSs, military operational, a number of military jobs to women. Of course, I'm talking about Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, the Air Force pararescuemen. These are all very elite units in the military that are male-dominated. That being said, given the fact that you weren't given the very specialized, needed combat training to do what you were asked to do in Iraq, do you think this move to put women in combat and in these specialized elite units is a step forward? Is it something that if you had the chance to join and do yourself, would you do it?
Well, when I first joined, I had no idea that some of those positions were closed to women. And I remember when I was going through the medic course, they were introducing certain parts of the Special Forces E-Team Delta medic course, which were far more advanced than any regular military medical course that you can take, which is more on an EMT level. And the Special Forces medic role was so advanced and had so much information. And I went through some of the training manuals, and I was thinking to myself, oh, wow, I really wish I could do this or be allowed to do it. And that was a problem, obviously, because that position was closed to me. I really don't think, and I think other military officials can agree with this that are not completely biased, that it all comes down to individual capability. Women have already performed in direct combat operations. We've already proven that, and without the same training that the other combat arms MOSs had. So we still were able to do it without the training, and we also did it without the credit. So would I go back in and do something like that if I were 17 and could go back in time? Absolutely. I would love the opportunity. It's something that is rigorous for anybody, regardless of gender. And I think the main issue is not necessarily gender itself or capability based on gender, but physical fitness and individual strengths.
All right. Michelle Wilmot joining us live via Skype from Las Vegas. Thank you so very much for sharing your story, and also thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service. Thanks, Christina.
Thanks, Michelle. Now joining us on the phone is Colleen Bushnell from Arizona, a woman who I mentioned a few moments ago is a survivor of military sexual trauma. She is also an advocate for change, an advocate for the way the military currently handles this huge problem of military sexual trauma. Colleen, are you there?
I am. Hi, how are you today?
Hi, Colleen. And again, thank you for joining us today. I understand that you spent about 10 years in the Air Force, and you had intended to spend your entire career in the military, but clearly that changed. Tell me what happened.
Well, in 2003, I was raped by a superior in my office at Lackland Air Force Base. The following year, I was sexually assaulted by our commander, who was a female. Upon my report, she committed suicide. From that point on, I experienced the retaliation and harassment I had feared I would face if I reported the rape in 2003. And ultimately, I was given an errant psychiatric diagnosis, and I was medically retired from the Air Force in 2006.
Colleen, I'm sorry, I don't want to abbreviate your story. We don't have a whole lot of time, but I want you to quickly give me a sense as to what you think should be done, given the volume, the number of cases that clearly military forces have to address with regards to military sexual trauma.
Well, with your first guest, and I do apologize, I don't know her name, and I'm honored to be on this show with her, by the way, a woman who's been on the front lines. What I'm going to say, it may sound as if it contradicts, but it doesn't. What happens is when a rape or assault happens and it's reported right now, the way it's being handled, overarchingly, is that the individual who reports is actually targeted with retaliation, and they're basically eliminated from the workplace, whether it be, on the front lines or stateside. So oftentimes we'll hear from folks, other women or men, who say that they don't see a problem in the workplace, in the military, with sexual assault. And the reason is because the system works so efficiently to remove anything that hinders the mission, that you don't see that person, under normal circumstances after the report is made. Generally, they're either disciplined or they are put in a psychiatric ward, basically, for reacting to having been raped.
And Colleen, I'm sorry, I'm very sorry, Colleen. I'm going to have to cut you off there, but I promise that I want you, and I will make space for you to come back on Our Take and share your story, because as you know, this is not a situation that is going away anytime soon. So again, I do apologize for cutting you off, but Colleen, please
thank you.
Please know that you have a place here on Our Take to shed insight and knowledge about this issue. Hillary Crosley, thank you for joining me today. It went by quickly, didn't it?
It did. It was a whirlwind, but it was a great conversation. I'm very thankful for the invitation.
And you too must come back.
I'm here.
All right, okay. I'm Christina Brown, and you are watching Our Take.